Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone from all parts of the world who have joined and registered for this webinar which we are having today. Hope you and your family are doing safe in the COVID times. Best wishes are with all of you. So now to begin with, let me introduce myself and the company to you. My name is Nitin Naveen and I am Vice President Innovation and Strategy at AI CoreSpot. I'll be the host for the day. Assisted by my colleague Arvind is there and Naveen is there, who will also assist me in keeping the event lively and resolving technical glitches if it comes in between. So I give a lot of thanks to them for putting in hard work and making this one a good, huge success and a good one too, because we have speakers with us who have come and the quality audience too, whom all have registered for this one. We'll try to provide a seamless experience to all of you so that you can gain maximum output out of this event. From the AI Spot front, let me provide a small introduction. Aware of what we are. We started this year and are gaining momentum. Our aim is obviously to be the number one AI-driven community all over the world so that like-minded people can be a part of the same in supporting, growing, and making it a success. Our mission is to serve as a hub for information regarding the Industry 4.0 technologies, which includes AI, ML, deep learning, robotics, blockchain, IoT, edge computing, 5G, drone, AR, VR, digital twin, cloud, and so on. We'll continue to do some industry-backed webinars and great hybrid events. The knowledge repository obviously will be made from the quality leaders who are joining us as a speaking panel, subject matter experts, and the thought leaders who are supporting us from all over the world. We'll enrich the content through videos, blogs, podcasts, newsletters, and digital content to shed light on this ever-growing industry. Request all of you to go through our website, that is aicorespot.io, from where you have registered for the event as well. It will give you all the updates regarding what we have in store for you. Also, please like our social media channels, which will keep you all updated on everything what we propose to offer in the coming months. In this month, we have a mega event which is coming up. That is a half-day virtual event on AI, blockchain, and IoT. The same topic, but we have some 12, 13 speakers on that day. It is happening on December 17th. So don't miss to attend that event too. We'll send the link to everyone who have registered for the webinar. Further, there are lots more in store for subsequent months as well, which focus on healthcare, retail, e-commerce, banking, financial sector, and the list is going on. Request all of you to keep connected with us and enjoy the learning. Now, about the webinar which is happening today. It's a panel discussion which will focus on convergence of AI, blockchain, and IoT. Before starting with the day, I would like to highlight few things so that it can set up the tone for the amazing learning and networking day for all of you. A special mention to our technology partner, which is Digit7, who has helped us in understanding our vision and supporting us to create a platform through which we can achieve our objectives. The support is immense from the starting, from the inception, from the time we thought about this platform, and the guidance is obviously superb. Some introduction about Digit7 to everyone. Innovation is the cornerstone of Digit7. At Digit7, they combine emerging technologies in unprecedented ways to engineer extraordinary products and offer innovation as a service which they have renamed as INAS. They are pivoting the traditional innovation model on its head to bring innovation closer to production and citizen scale impact with innovation DNA. They draw transformative resources and endless energy from four quarters to make this happen. Their associations with trusted brands such as AWS, Microsoft Azure, IBM, Microsoft, SAS, Adobe, Salesforce, Sterling Commerce, and among others help them constantly achieve and upskill practitioners and champion the partners' best delivery methodologies. Professionally, they are closely associated with tech titans, Forbes Technology Council, CompTIA, Richardson IQ, University of Texas, Dallas, and more technology brain power to leverage their contrasting standpoints and diverse skill sets. The products which they have are Smart Express Store, e-commerce, Grab and Go, HPOS, admin, store management, Smart AR, delivery app, digital wallet, drone scan, blockchain-based SCM, Label Monkey, Data Mink, and digital twin. The services which they provide are product engineering, innovation as a service, digital transformation, customer experience, and innovation design. So request all of you to go through their website, which is digit7.io, and understand more in depth. Also, thanks to all our community partner which has supported for today's event, which includes InfoVision, Encora, the World Summit, Community Tech, Telebionics, and UM6P Ventures to make this event a success. A special mention to speakers and attendees of the event who registered and came today to achieve their objectives through this forum. At the end of the day, obviously, if you gain something out of this or get to know knowledge or to get to know and network with each other, our core objectives is achieved. Next, before starting with the day, and I'll hand it over to Lalit, if anybody want to ask question, which is important, you can type in the Q&A section, which is there in the right side of the menu option. You can type in as and when the panel members discusses, and we'll try to get it answered during the discussion or at the end of the discussion as per the time permitted. There's also a hand button like this, which is at the bottom of the screen, which is visible to all of you, through which you can even raise the hand and come to the stage to ask questions to the speakers as well. So you will be like us on the stage, you can ask the questions. It is also a good thing if you want to come. Now, I'll quickly move on to the our panel members so that we can start the day and set up the tone for this lovely networking day. So I'll hand it over to Lalit Wadhwa, who's the moderator of the panel discussion, along with Axel, Kevin, Agyat, and Yasir, so that they can take the panel discussion forward. Over to you, Lalit.
Thank you very much, Nitin. Looking forward to a wonderful conversation with the panelists. I think we are fortunate to have an esteemed group of panelists today. At least, my short interaction with all of these panelists has been nothing short of amazing. Extremely experienced, with very diverse backgrounds, roles, and experiences, as they will shortly share with all of you over here. I think the key is that they bring a variety of perspectives to this discussion. So looking forward to a very healthy, very mature conversation around the topic of convergence of AI, blockchain, and IoT. But before we get into that discussion and take on certain questions, Axel, why don't we begin with you if you want to go ahead with introductions, and then we will go through the rest of the panelists. If you can quickly share with the audience what your background and what your experiences are all about.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It's a wonderful opportunity that we are coming here together. And what I really love is that we are from across the world, right? We have in Dubai, I'm on the West Coast. And about myself, I consider myself to be the entrepreneur's entrepreneur. So after I had several startup companies, now I am working as CEO of World Summit, where we give consulting services, but we're also building an entrepreneur's TV show coupled with a venture fund. And I have been also for 5 years working as CEO of Pitch Global, which is a worldwide organization where we give startup companies the platform to actually showcase their technology, and we are helping them and mentor them. And what is my pet peeve on everything, including even today's topic, going to market strategy. I need to see the use cases. It's not about that technology can do certain things. It has to have a case why it makes sense that it does this technology and the convergence. That's my short introduction. And for anybody who wants to reach me, it's axelt@ourworldsummit.com.
Perfect, Axel. Thank you so much for that. Kevin, would you like to go next with a very quick introduction to your experiences and background?
Absolutely. Thanks, Lola. And again, to echo Axel's comments, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I'm coming to you today from Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. So we're just west of Toronto. We represent the Waterloo region. I work with Communitech. I'm the Vice President of Data and Advanced Technologies at Communitech. We're a public-private innovation hub that's working very closely with the tech sector in the region. And just a little bit of a perspective on the region that I'm coming from. We're a member-based organization. We have about 1,600 members 800 of those are startups, and we have 140 scale-ups and about 100 large enterprises that we count as partners in what we do. We employ, collectively through that membership, about 1 million people, 1 million tech workers. And just recently we reached an interesting milestone. Our collective companies this year just passed the 2.7 billion mark in capital raised. So a lot of work going on here around data. It's very strong in digital, so we're very concerned and very engaged with AI and IoT and things of that sort. So I come to you today sort of representing what's going on, I guess, in that part of the world. And a lot of my comments will come from the experiences I have with the companies that we work with on a daily basis. So thanks again for the opportunity to come and join.
Wonderful, Kevin. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. Yasser, would you like to go next, please?
Sure. Thank you very much. And again, echoing everybody's sentiment. So thank you for inviting us. I'm Yasser Biaz. I'm the CEO of UM6B Ventures. UM6B Ventures is a VC firm, early stage VC firm, that is 100% subsidiary of UM6B. UM6B is University of Mohammed VI Polytechnic. So it's a Moroccan university with a noble kind of ambition to accelerate education, research, and knowledge, throughout Africa. And so we come in as a complement to the university to enable the development of entrepreneurship and the acceleration of scientific innovation. So the expertise in my team essentially consists of taking, lab projects and taking them outbound to the industry, be it as a startup, as an operating company and such. And so we have to blend in understanding science, technology, but everything that it takes to transition, a project into an investable asset. So we do a lot of venture building in addition to all the legal and financial components associated with the transition of those projects onto assets. But thanks, I'm glad to be here with you.
Thank you very much, Yasser. Agiet, if you would like to take a couple of minutes and share your background and experiences.
Sure. Thank you. Really, it's a great pleasure to be with such top thought leaders and experts from around the world to exchange idea about AI, OT, IoT, blockchain. My background, I'm a senior serial entrepreneur. I have experience in building 3 companies. Definitely, I cannot beat Axel number with 7 startup. It's still, I have a couple of years ahead of me, maybe to reach this, to beat these numbers. My background is cybersecurity, 22 years, and exposed also in blockchain, AI, fintech in London, and now I'm involved in health tech, in Telebionics as a co-founder and COO. We build there, you can say, IoT device, remote sensing technology, where you can gather important vital sign from patient remotely related to the doctors, can give the right diagnostic to the patient. It's really what we do. We empower professional doctors with the correct or with the accurate information in order to give a proper diagnostic remotely. And it's everything surrounding AI, and in the future will be also some blockchain. Therefore, today's subject is very important also, and I am very glad to be here.
Wonderful, Agiet. And lastly, my name is Lalit Wadhwa, and I'm the EVP and Chief Technology Officer at a software engineering and a digital product engineering company called Incora, which is headquartered out of Arizona, US. I'm based out of Phoenix. In terms of experience, 30 years in the technology industry, both on the hardware design side, so embedded systems, hardware design, and on the cloud side with cloud architecture, machine learning, data engineering, and artificial intelligence along with blockchain. So that's my background and experience. I think let's dive into our conversation. Agiet, let's begin with at least a very high-level definition, or let's try to put some structure around the term or the phrase technological convergence. According to you, what does it mean, And does technological convergence actually accelerate innovation for different industries, given the fact that you already have some of these different streams like AI, blockchain, and IoT in place? How does convergence bring all of it together and accelerate innovation? If you could begin with a few thoughts on this topic.
Sure. Let's start with a definition of it. Like for my understanding, it's really putting different technology together that it will serve a new purpose. The best example I like always to use is what Apple brought to the market with the iPhone. Before the iPhone was there, none of us thought that they need a smartphone where you can listen to your music, but same time take nice picture and do the chat and really all in one and get your personal assistant and everything now the smartphone can do. But they put it out there and then people say, okay, wow, this is something we love, we need, we cannot live without it anymore, right? And I believe this is the same what we are now doing in Telebionics. As you say, we're putting really different technology in one small compact systems where it's have multiple purpose. It is like if you talk to anybody, why should I need all this sensing technology, blood pressure, heart rate, SpO2, all these things? Can this machine also prepare my coffee? No, not yet, but at least it can give all this information, which usually you have it through 5, 6, 7 different devices, and will enable you to have a better access all over the world to healthcare, quality healthcare from the comfort of your home. This is what I always say, what we are trying now to bring on the market, something like nobody know about it before, they don't know really they need it. But as soon as they will use it and they will get used to it, then they will say, wow, I need it. I will go for it for always. And again, the AI will help us a lot in the prediction. This is the power of data. We get correlated, and with the time you will be able to predict a lot of medical condition in our case. But in other cases, there is a lot of things that can be utilized with the power of IoT, and putting on top the blockchain as an infrastructure. You have the best combination as a technology where I believe it will be a big accelerator for digital transformation and will change the way how we perceive and do our day-to-day business and the optimization of business process.
Okay, perfect, Agya. Thank you for that. Axel, you mentioned go-to-market is so close to your heart. It's all about the use cases. Share a perspective around the use case side of it. How does a consumer who gets a device, like Agya mentioned, at the convergence of some of these technologies, how does the consumer perceive, and of course the producer perceive, the convergence of these technologies?
Consumers, and whether it's in the consumer business or in the business world, only react to the old thing, what is in for me. Nobody buys a device only because it's cool. Oh, there's 3 technologies working together. If it doesn't enhance what the deliverables are of the technology, then it has no value. I give you an example. The weirdest pitch that I listened to in the last 3 years was a company who wants to come up with electro cars as a kit. So you can buy it, build it at home. And then he said at the end, and by the way, we are using AI. He didn't explain how. And we are using blockchain, and we are using IoT in all of this. And he never connected the dots, but there were 3 buzzwords where he hoped that the investors would jump on it. And that's a very bad example for attempted convergence. Good example is, of course, here the healthcare technology, although I don't know yet whether blockchain should play an enhancing role. I heard the other day convergence where the music industry suffers from plagiarism and authorship identity. If you would go out and take from now on into the eternal future, all music to be generated over blockchain with authentication elements, then there might be a use case, but it will fall apart if they try to categorize all last several hundred years of music under this scheme. So the users need to know that there is value. And I tell you, I was in sales, VP of sales and marketing. If I would come in and says, we can jump A, B, C, D, E, the people always said, so why do I care? So I never presented thereafter ever again any corporate presentation. I said, what's the problem you're trying to solve? And if I found an application with the technology that I was representing, then I showed them how the problem can be solved. And that is so important. We cannot just fall in love with the buzzword. And one last word, we have to be careful with AI. AI, if we expect that it solves problems in an unsolvable universe, then it will not deliver anything. AI can only really deliver meaningful data if we stay within solvable equation space, which means linear, quadratic, cubic correlations can be solved faster with computers. We can do great image comparison like brain scans. It's a good application for today's computing power. But if you believe that you can improve things for which there are no non-ambiguous answers, then you're getting in a dangerous territory where you would actually say, wow, I tried to solve a problem with 20 variables. Mathematics is unsolvable, but AI miraculously will actually deliver the answers. That's where we have to be careful. Yeah.
Yep, that's great because, obviously you train a model on available data, and if the available data belongs to a particular domain and has a particular distribution, the model is going to respond to that distribution and not out of the distribution. And of course, most models run into problem when they encounter data which is out of distribution, as a result of which the models have to be retrained at that point in time.
Right.
Yeah. Can I add one? Can I add small comment on this, on what Axel said, that we have to be very careful with AI. Now, in cybersecurity, imagine you train the AI in detecting certain attacks or certain malicious things, but somebody have the power to manipulate it. Then the AI, actually what you train it to detect, it will be the best cover for the hackers or the attackers to bypass this. That's why it's very dangerous. And on the other hand, if it will fall down again in the data modeling and everything fall down in the wrong hand, again, it will be very dangerous. Talking now from the cybersecurity background and related to AI, which is very, very delicate matter. I agree with Axel.
Great. So, Yasser, a spin from your end or a perspective from your end. You work with companies which are trying to bring some of these ideas to market. You explained that you bring together the financing piece, the idea piece, the people piece, the legal piece. Some of these companies that you work with, how do they see convergence, or what's their interpretation of convergence specifically around the three technologies that we are talking of over here?
Yeah. So thank you. So at least I'll probably repeat something, or at least that Axel suggested, is that as soon as you hear technology and convergence, you don't consume technology, you consume an application. So there is the explicit or manifest kind of thing that you see out of technology. Now, technology convergence, you can just take like one historic example, which is the convergence of like the internet and mobility. And you can see already all the paradigms that have emerged and the economic type of opportunity. So I think that even when we try to project, so I talked about something past now, and we're still adapting, at least through the layers of what, new opportunities, economic, technological, social, whatever have emerged. But now, at least with the blending of AI, IoT and blockchain, they make a ton of sense. And I think that they would suggest something very, very novel. I think that, obviously, essentially AI has become the source of everything. Now, how do you blend it into something that is an application that can turn into a service. So we see, I mean, obviously a lot of IoT is being already blended with AI. I think that blockchain still, has to, find, at least its marketplace, decently. But if you were to blend them together, I'm just seeing, like, for example, and we've been, I think, now used to the X as a service type of model. But just imagine, say, for example, I mean, in a new kind of like paradigm, whereby you can start actually building ad hoc infrastructure that blend in all of these things. So say, for example, I have an EV that I want to charge. I'm remote somewhere. Well, maybe I can buy the equipment, get people to sort of like collectively pay for it as well. You use blockchain to authentify people so that they can connect to it, right? And with IoT, you can sense your environment and connect with it. So, yeah, I mean, we see a lot of movement there. But like you said, I mean, they just need to sit in the right paradigm, because I think that many of these technologies are essentially mature, but the markets and the application kind of, environments have not caught up yet.
Perfect. Yes, thank you very much for that. Kevin, let's take the discussion one step forward. So I think, Agiat, you began with an example which said, okay, smartphone, this is a wonderful example of convergence of several technologies. Kevin, in the space that we are talking of, which is, the blockchain, IoT, AI convergence, can you, based on your experience and the part of the world that you come from, share with us a few other examples that you have run into where some of these, at least two of these technologies are converging, if not all three of them? So products and services around the convergence. Could you give us a few examples, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And one I'll speak of ties directly to a program that we're running around connected and autonomous vehicles. And again, it's one of those applications where I think holds much promise. Lots of opportunity for all of these technologies to play a role. And if we look at things that are happening right now, there are instances where you can put a device on your vehicle, and insurance companies track your driving behavior, and they leave you with the impression that you're always the better driver and you're going to get better rates because you don't drive like that other person out there. So so there's an idea where they're collecting data on driving behaviors, not only using it to potentially set rates for individuals and their insurance, but obviously collecting a lot of data on driving behaviors, which they can use going forward from a predictive perspective. But if we look at, I guess, if you pardon the pun, what does it look like down the road for where we're going? One of the areas that we're pushing on is the development of safety systems for connected and autonomous vehicles. And if you look at that, and it's beyond just the onboard kinds of things like adaptive cruise control or or warning systems of things of that sort. It's the instance where real-time data flows over a network, hopefully a secure network. AI operates on that data, and it supports things like ensuring that vehicles don't collide with pedestrians or bicyclists. And I think we all probably heard of Vision Zero as an initiative around the world to drive those kinds of interactions to zero. So we see those kinds of things emerging. And certainly, if you think about being able to track all of those assets and situational awareness around where pedestrians are, where bicyclists are, where vehicles are, where their trajectories are, is it sunny, is it rainy, is there snow on the ground? It's still very much nascent, but certainly I see this as a very lucrative space where we will see the convergence of these kinds of technologies.
Excellent, Kevin. So, Agiat, you, when we started the conversation, you mentioned health tech as the space where, some of this convergence is happening. And then we had a very quick discussion around, the fairness or the safety related to AI. Can you, give us a couple of more examples based on your experience where you see these technologies converging and beginning to create value and getting accepted in the marketplace?
Sure. I will try to highlight or give a little bit more information about the health tech and blockchain and AI. We say, okay, we have the huge amount of data, which we get it through the IoT as a sensor. And you need to put this data like to make sense in database, and then you run it through the AI, you train it, and you will get the prediction model of it. Beautiful. Now, if you want to take it to the next steps by data privacy, security, which better technology can be applied than blockchain? You get like really give the control to the patient, because he can really 100% control his data, and he can monetize it. Is really, instead that we currently, unfortunately, all of us giving our data, our information for free, we getting no money. The big giant, they make the huge bucks on our information, what they get. But what if we can give the consumer actually the possibility to really control his data, and he can decide. I can decide today if I want to sell my information to certain entity and a room and make money out of it. Why not? And this is what can be possible really only in blockchain. Now, definitely blockchain have also some limitation. It's not yet there because of scalability, and a lot of people are against some of the mechanism used in blockchain technology, like consuming a lot of power. But there's other mechanism instead of proof of you can utilize a mechanism like proof of stake or proof of authority, which is like more power efficiency. But at the end, if we really can combine the three technology together, we have the sensing capability as use data, we have the AI, which makes sense of it, and we have the infrastructure of it really to provide the consumer with some benefit. As Axel said at the beginning, what in it for me? It's need to make sense, and it will make best sense if I can get output, if I need to go to ambulance or I need to go to emergency with the time, with the correlation of this data. But on the other hand, also I can maybe generate some profit out of my data, and I know I control it 100%. This is really where we envision this in the future. And I want just to say I like very much, actually, I love autonomous car, like Kevin said. And you can still imagine you have the autonomous car with all sensor capability. You drive your car, take you to the dinner, evening, autonomous. You read your newspaper or whatever you need to read, and when you get there, the car will go automatically in the parking slot. But you build blockchain technology behind it for the payment. That will be automatically charged for the payment. And there's no other better technology I'm aware of instead of the blockchain really to utilize digital payment to secure digital identity and to secure even the infrastructure itself against attacks.
Perfect, Agia. Thank you for that. So, before we move ahead, I think there is an audience question. Let's try to take that. And Axel, you and Yasser, the two of you, I would like you to, try and provide your perspective on this. So the question is, of course, Chris thanks us for this event. And of course, those thanks go to, Nitin, to you. The question is, major enterprises are looking into Web 3.0 and finding ways to incorporate it into their portfolio. So largely, distributed internet. That said, do you envision 3.0 technologies, Web 3.0 technologies, disrupting Web 2.0, or do you believe that these are complementary? So Axel or Yasser, one of you, if you would like to go ahead and take on this question.
I think we have mentioned before, every single time the iPhone came up, we labeled something conversion there. I call it evolution. And the real conversion that on the iPhone happened, and that brings me to the Web 2 and 3.0, is actually that the price point of technology like touchscreens came to and the technology availability that it's sensitive enough for our fingers came together at an ideal point where a company like Apple could come out. There was no genius behind it. It was just happening because I already had a touchscreen from Microsoft, right, with a stylus pen. I could do almost everything that the iPhone was able to do, but the one beauty that it was done via your fingers was an ideal conversion, and that is technological evolution. Here, the same thing. Web 3.0 will be an evolution of what we have, and it will stay when it makes our life better, our applications better, right? If it doesn't bring anything to the table, it will disappear. And so that's my point of view at this. What do you think?
Yeah, thank you. Totally agreed. I mean, so Web 1.0 was kind of unidirectional. You just consumed whatever you got. Web 2.0 allowed for more exchanges. Web 3 is just going to give other dimensions. So generally, like you said, Axel, you're just evolving. So essentially, the previous version, which is Web 2.0, is going to be like a niche application. So it's like for example, like even like web messaging and SMS, they're kind of like they address the same kind of application set. It's just a little bit more elaborate. So I think that, Web 3.0 is the former Web 2.0 is just going to be a small use case component of 3.0. But I mean, obviously, that will crush. I mean, even I think that the earlier kind of like paradigms established by Web 2.0, it's going to change completely like the interaction, systems, the value that is going to be. It's going to decentralize a lot of the things. So even if like within an enterprise or, between the bounds of two enterprises or two environments, as in like a business and consumer and so forth, I mean, the rule set is just going to change to another level. So it's going to allow for more richness and more opportunity to create value. So like you said, like I'll just call it evolution. And so the new species will render the previous species just out of, business data or like economic sense.
Wonderful. I think we'll take one more question, and then we will move on to the set of questions at least I prepared. So the audience over here is pretty active. They came up with another question. So this is Siddharth, who says, application of blockchain in the music industry was a great example. Could you please list some other examples of real-world blockchain applications? So Kevin, if you want to take that on to begin with.
Well, I think we see numerous cryptocurrencies come out of blockchain. There's if I see another one, anyway, I'll leave that. But that's the interesting thing about blockchain is, if at least from my view and the sort of the 1,600 companies that we work with, I think there's tremendous opportunity for blockchain applications. And the notion of using it for payments, smart contracts. I know there's notion of use, and we've got a company that's working on smart contracts for logistics companies, especially when they're taking goods across the border, so as to make sure that you have that line of paperwork to ensure through customs and everything that those things are happening. But I don't see a lot of companies coming out with a plethora of applications like I do around AI and IoT, and it kind of feels like it's a technology looking for the application. I think we all see the value and the power of it, and of course, we've already mentioned healthcare as another example, and that's another place where verifiable, secure data is absolutely essential. But if I look at things like, if I go back to the autonomous vehicle situation where you're exchanging data in real time, I think what we're going to find with challenges is as valuable as blockchain will be in that application, because none of us wants those autonomous vehicles to be hijacked. But it's the scalability of the blockchain infrastructure to support real-time applications like that are going to be difficult. So again, I see lots of opportunity. I see lots of ideas, and I see some what I'll call MVPs being developed. But I certainly wouldn't, beyond, again, the cryptocurrencies, I wouldn't see I wouldn't say that I see a lot of uptake for blockchain in a lot of other industries.
Yeah, I would like to second the notion. So I have not seen a killer app for blockchain today. And security definitely is not one of it, because we need to understand where the data security problems come from. Our data is secure. As long as you turn on AES 256 encryption, this is unbreakable. This is not how we get to data today and how the cyber thieves get into it. It's called the human stupidity factor, that you open up an email and click on something without verifying that you actually go into the right source. And there you're leaking your own user ID and password, and blockchain is of no better. You need to translate blockchain data at one gateway to the real world, right? If you want to take cryptocurrency and exchange it to some US dollar, there is a gateway where this is going to happen. As soon as you have leaked the credentials of this gateway, hell can break loose. And we know so many breaches already in cryptocurrency where wallets were hijacked and the money disappeared. So therefore, the perceived security that you cannot trace things down is actually counterintuitive to your own security of data once the money is gone. So, and I have a couple of friends who lost their money. So we don't, to your point, we don't see today a real application for the blockchain. Maybe the movie industry is one, but then again, who has an interest in doing this? The artists and not the general public. So will that actually tilt it over and make it in a real world application?
So yeah, if I may also just at least add my perspective to this one, I think that also one major bottleneck to these things happening on the ground is, obviously incumbency. So I think that in the case of decentralized finance and relief distribution, right, especially with COVID, there was a beautiful opportunity to leverage it. Another place where I see blockchain makes sense, like we said, like for example, say there is like an energy network or whatever, and I have a device, right? Like I have my own charger. I want to just insert it there, and it allows me to essentially put in a box and transact within another network, without having to go through it. Another kind of real world application I see in the future is essentially its potential to make contracts a computation thing versus a verbose type of thing. So, you just agree on whatever it is, like a milestone or something like that, and you have a consensus kind of environment around you that just validate that indeed you have delivered what you were supposed to. And so, yeah, many ways, but I think it's one of those things where, the application is trying to make its way, in the market. But, obviously, some incumbents are going to be hurt, in the process, and so they will resist at some point. But I think that relief distribution and everything that is social, especially with COVID, could have been a beautiful opportunity too.
Great, Yasser. Thank you for that. So, just another viewpoint over here, and Siddharth, we are spending a lot of time on your questions, so thank you for that. I think, at least when you talk of real-world applications, supply chain provenance or product provenance in the supply chain is a wonderful use case. And there are industries today, including food, including shipping, including semiconductors, because all of these industries, tracing the provenance of the product is extremely critical. In the case of semiconductors, simply because the value of the semiconductors can be several $100s, counterfeiting is a huge issue. And so blockchains are beginning to make a little bit of impact. So there are pieces in the supply chain world, specifically that at least I have worked on, where there is some measurable impact of deploying blockchains. And largely, these are around the Hyperledger fabric, at least at this point in time. Okay, let's try to proceed with our conversation. We discussed the convergence. We discussed some examples. Let's discuss, do these three technologies that we are talking of over here, do they have any pain points or challenges associated with them, or is it smooth sailing? The technologies are well set, they are well understood, standards have been established. And if there are challenges, could we discuss some of those challenges or categories of challenges that we have run into today or we expect to run into as we move down this path. And Kevin, we'd like to begin with you. If you could give us your perspective of what you see are potential challenges, at least in these three technologies, and of course, the convergence of these technologies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I'm about to say applies to all three, but it's especially pertinent to one, and it's the notion of trust. And of course, when you talk AI or when you talk IoT in particular, trust comes to mind. And one example I'll give where it was very obvious. I served on what was the Digital Strategy Advisory Panel for Toronto when Google or Sidewalk Labs came to town, and they were going to create the smart city of the future, if you will, in cooperation with the city of Toronto. And they came with some very specific notions about how they were going to do it. They had some very specific ideas on data. They had some very specific notions on data governance. And as you might expect, that raised the public ire and the feeling that a large tech company was going to have control not only over the governance but over the data of the city. And it just it never recovered from there. So it was Sidewalk Labs walked away from that in December. I think it was in 2020, blaming the pandemic. But the truth is that the trust had disappeared, and it felt like there was no way to recover from that. And if I look at AI, I would say, again, there's many instances of AI being deployed out there. And everything that we do, from our smartphones to chatbots and everything of that sort. But I still feel that adoption is hindered because of a lack of trust. People don't understand it. They don't trust it. Many of the algorithms can't be explained as to how they come to their conclusions. And then it's all rooted in the data. Is the data representative of the process that AI is trying to replicate? And I think we glance over it and we think that that's just a bygone conclusion, but it's not. And it's at the core of it. Until we deal with the trust issue and we find ways to make, to help consumers, businesses, government to trust it, adoption is going to be hindered and slowed, and it will not reach its potential. But I think there's opportunity, but again, it's a very heavy lift, but we have to grapple with it.
Thank you for that, Kevin. Agyat, you come from, or at least your current experiences in a space which is slightly regulated, or actually heavily regulated, the health tech industry. Can you talk of some of the pains and challenges from your perspective of a regulated space, and how adoption of this convergence or these independent technologies is proceeding, and the pains and challenges that you have to surmount to get the technology into mainstream?
Sure. Before I touch base on this, let me just comment on what just Kevin say about the trust. Actually, it is a big issues about this technology. And I don't want to scare anybody here on the call or who watching us, but it's estimated, some statistics say that we are going to see around 7 billion IoT devices connected to the grid or to the network in the next 10 years. And if we want to see it now in the terms of trust and how secure this, and if there's any possibility really to overcome this network, you will have an army of really powerful processing that you can take everything down with it. This is really a big challenge because you need to enforce the manufacturer, the supplier, the creator and vendor really to have everything from scratch built with security in mind to control this properly. It's one of the biggest challenges really, and to have embedded secure by design technology. Now, if we want to add to it blockchain, as we say, is we have a problem with scalability, but this will be, again, the best platform to create these digital twins, to create this digital identity. It can be machine to machine and make it secure. Now, how this translates to what we do in telehealth and not telehealth and health tech. Again, we're dealing with customer data, we're dealing with information, we need to work everything from the embedded security architect and embedded hardware, everything having security in mind, build it really to scale later on. In terms of regulation, we know what we do. There's a certain, as example, a certain regulation and certain rules. You need to follow certain steps. You need to go certain certification. You need to go. It is painful route. We went through it and we did it. We have to do it to comply with cybersecurity law and user privacy and everything in the state, but also in Europe, GDPR, HIPAA, ISO, FDA, everything, you name it. It is a very long process, but maybe this is the reason not everybody doing this, because it's a painful process, it's a long process, take a lot of time, and definitely you never know next year what new regulation it will coming out really to take it under control or change, but we are ready for it. It's challenging, definitely, but it's doable. It's not impossible.
So yeah, I can also provide a perspective, at least in healthcare. I mean, unfortunately, I cannot relate essentially all three, technology areas into healthcare, but at least I can point them one by one. So I mean, obviously, AI is still specific. We're not at AGI. And one of the areas where AI found a good environment is essentially with vision. Vision essentially, structure or architecture defines function. And the relationship between CNNs and vision is essentially, is an established kind of, premise. So a lot of, health-related solutions that essentially deal with vision, with imaging. So we do, like, for example, one startup that does, fetal diagnostic, malformation diagnostic, early on. We have startups working on the bioinformatics, genomics, but also on, essentially working out or conversion on protocols, prior to clinical trials. So we see a lot.
Oops.
I think we have lost Yasser over there. So, we'll wait for Yasser to come back and finish his thought. But Axel, question for you at this point in time. We're discussing all of these, pain points and challenges.
He is back. He can finish.
Sir, welcome back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll just conclude on that. I was just kicked out and, I brought myself back in. Yeah, so very quickly, like we said, a lot of AI, either on the data science, image processing and things like that, like oncology. We've seen a lot more IoT on, on-premise, like in hospital, or, essentially like the smart devices. Like, for example, we have some that have these kind of like a lab on a chip, lab on a, membrane fill, type of thing, patch. Blockchain, unfortunately, not enough, but I think it's a good, anonymizer, if you will, it's just because it allows you to treat with patient data, just dealing with, numbers or whatever, like strings versus like a person. So, and I think that they should come together. It's just like, it's not there yet, but a lot of opportunity and potential for them to blend in.
Wonderful, Yasser. So, Axel, the question that I was trying to put to you was, we discussed all these pain points and some of the challenges, and we looked at some of the challenges very specific to specific industries. Do you think that governments are either actively involved or will get actively involved in trying to create certain frameworks, given, some of the issues around data privacy, data protection, anonymization that we have discussed, while making sure that, they do not impede innovation? So can you talk a little bit about what governments are doing in different parts of the world? Is there any movement on this front, or it's a wild west over there right now?
I think the least of people that I would like to see involved in the process are governments. Governments are not actually, you see, I'm wondering about everything that is happening in the world, and I always say, you politician, it's for the people, by the people, but the people have forgotten this, and the politicians have forgotten this. They are catering to their own interest group. The people that give them money, they don't have the greater good, or very few have the greater good in mind. I think we, on the technology side, can envision the greater good, but we also have to be very careful that we don't do something like implementing a chip into my body only because we can get a data point more quicker. That's not where we as humanity should actually focus on and go. And I always like to say, figures never lie, but liars figure. So the manipulation of data, even by our own mind. I give you a classic example of the healthcare industry. There was a point in time where we said, don't eat any eggs any longer. It creates cholesterol in the body. Until the scientists found out if you take all cholesterol intake out, people still had high cholesterol level because there were functions in the body happening that they didn't even know about or didn't even research. Anything that is consisting of a chaos system, mathematically defined and unresolved, you can't put an equation on anything, cannot be and should not ever be modeled in AI. The reason is because you come to too many wrong conclusions. And the wrong conclusions can be as dangerous as having no conclusion at all. And that's my big warning. I've been following the trends for many, many years. I remember the first Comdex in my life I went to in 81, and everybody talked already about a form of data correlation. AI, the term, has seen four springs in itself over the last 40 years. And I think the core problems have still not been solved. And Professor Mandelbrot wrote a beautiful book. It's called The Misbehavior of the Markets. Anybody who hasn't read it, please read it. It shows you that our predictive technologies and our assumptions are always overtaken by Mother Nature. Things are happening outside our construct that we anticipated. And I always end up with the saying, you don't know what you don't know. So all your models are based on what you think you know, but not on how reality is.
Great. Kevin, your perspective around the role of government on certain specific topics that we have discussed. I think let's leave out the technical challenges, but there are legal and regulatory challenges related to data, fairness of the models, the ethical AI piece that we have discussed. Do you think that there is a role for government over here, given the fact that you come from a country which looks at things a little differently than most of us over here in the US do?
Well, to echo Axel's comments, it pains me, to have to work with government because they are slow. There's reasons for them being slow, but they have to be at the table. Like, I can't imagine a world where we don't work with government, because ultimately, government was elected to protect the rights and the interests and the freedoms of the citizens in which it serves. And I guess without having government at the table influencing policy, influencing legislation, is that I'm a big believer in the triple bottom line. It's people, planet, and profit together. But if profit is the prime motivator, then people and planet can be left behind. And like it or not, I mean, government plays a pivotal role in ensuring fairness, equity, justice, whatever you want to call it. And we've seen instances where we've had bad actors in tech doing things purely for the purposes of driving profit. And our good friends at Facebook most recently have been accused of driving clicks at the expense of wellness of people that are using the platform. So we need government to be check and balance. What I'm hoping, what would be nice is if we could get them to move at a quicker pace, and a pace of which technology and opportunity is developing. Because just back to the sort of one of the things around technological convergence, I think what makes it both opportunistic and scary at the same time is the synergistic ability of these things to come together to create something that none of them could do individually. And then if we wanted to get into the philosophy of it, are we driving ourselves towards that technological singularity where we're past the point of no return, where technology is irreversible and is sort of uncontrollable, if you will. So I think we need governments in there to be that check and balance and represents the best interests of people, because I'm a firm believer that technology is here to serve people, and that's what it should be about. And we should have use cases and purposes and use technology to the advantage to not only drive profit, but to sustain people and planet at the same time.
Sure, Yasser, go ahead.
Thank you. Now, this is really, interesting. So the thing is that, we're, essentially trusting government to deal with the kind of like the regulatory kind of, perspective on these technologies. And even when you look, for example, Kevin, you mentioned the Cambridge Analytica, issue with Facebook, now Meta, right? And so the thing is that, this is a technology that is like more than 10 years old. And it's only like a couple of years back that you saw this happen. So you're asking somebody to be able to understand, like, truly, like all of the, emergent nature of interactions and deal with them beforehand. And so now technology is accelerating at a pace where if it takes you 8 years now to get to this point to understand that you should have regulated 8 years ago, it's going to be very, very different on the other end. Now, in terms of pragmatics, so where, again, governments are dealt a different hand in the different regions. So the thing is that as for regulation, the US and Singapore are not going to relate the same thing to regulation. So in places, for example, you have the big market and so forth, and so you can throttle a little bit. If you're a small country like Switzerland or like Singapore, you may actually use regulatory arbitrage to allow yourself a place at this at the table for the next round, right? And so that's why you'll see a lot more agility, around blockchain and like biotech and so forth in some of the smaller countries, but with punchy type of ambition. And so you're going to have this kind of like misalignment in a way as far as like how regulation happens. And so that's why everybody's treating it differently. So you're going to have a Europe, you're going to have a US, you're going to have the small, like advanced countries, and then a bunch of other stuff.
Very interesting perspective, Yasser. Thank you for that. We'll take one more question, and then we have an audience question that I want to get to, because I think it brings us back to that one technology, blockchain, where I think there are a lot of questions and not enough answers. So we'll get to blockchain, but Akiyat, question for you over here, given the cybersecurity view that you get into, this entire discussion. So specifically related to, topics like identity management and cybersecurity, could you share with all of us and the audience, of course, the implications of this convergence or any other convergence where multiple technologies are coming together? What do you think are some of those implications?
It's a very good question, Tim. And I believe like the dream trio, it is the conversion of these three technology together. Because you have the IoT, which is, I will give an example, smart cities. You have the smart city, you have all the sensor capability, the camera, everything you say, and the interactions with the different devices, machine to machine. And you have the AI to make sense of this data and take a decision for it. But what will secure it most? Again, I'm always say it's blockchain. It's the best infrastructure and the best platform really to manage this identity of this different. It is not the entity. It can be a human. It can be a car. It can be a sensor. It's really managing the identity by creating a digital twin for the entire city or a digital twin for your entire manufacturing plant, where you can make sure that the communication is secure, the identity is secured also between the machine, and there is no fraud happening, whatever if it's the interaction is a human machine or machine. And that's what I see as like really the perfect mesh or marriage together, these three different technology really to to accelerate transformation, to make sense and bring benefit for the humanity in different areas.
Thank you, Agiat. So, rest of the panel, Axel, starting with you, any disagreements or different viewpoints around blockchain as as the platform or the technology that will allow us to begin build trust through identity management and security practices? Your views, your viewpoints, Axel.
So I can envision many technology models under which I could build up a trust model. Does it have to be blockchain or not? It might as well be, because everybody has starting to get their fingers wet on this. But we need to do an excellent job to tell the general public why this becomes a trustable medium. And we need to do more to your old métier of cybersecurity. We need to do more to really make sure, before we roll out in big scale as a general public message, blockchain to everybody, that we have made sure that this cannot be manipulated. Then I see many use cases. For example, I'm constantly getting annoyed. You go from Dr. A to Dr. B, and you have to fill out the damn forms over and over again. What's your history? What's this? If I could say, by the way, here's a switch. I turn on my data for you, and I will actually remove my data when I'm gone again. But you can see this. I don't have to fill this out. Why? Technology is advanced enough, but we cannot trust the existing process. And blockchain in itself needs to become 100% trustable before we give it over such sensitive information.
Great, Axel. Thank you for those views. Kevin, I saw you nodding vigorously when Axel was, giving his views. And then at the end of his, perspective, he said 100% trustable. What are your views around blockchain as a technology for identity management? And is there something 100% trustable in the digital world?
I'm not sure there's 100% trustable anywhere, but so first of all, I'll be the first to admit that I know enough about blockchain to be dangerous. So I'm not sure I want to sort of weigh in as to that level of depth. But where I want to go with it, which is again what Axel was saying, and it goes back to something he started out the panel with, was the idea of use cases. And where I always get nervous about application of technology is when it's considered in generalities. So, AI and blockchain and IoT and security and everything. But really what we need to do, I think, is sort of the optimal convergence is when we start with a use case and then we bring the technologies to the table that enable that use case. Because if we treat, and I'll go to security and cybersecurity as an example, like if we secure every application as if it, equivalent to what we do for healthcare data or finance or things like that, like when it comes to things that where it needs to be less secure, we're just stifling innovation, and I think that's where the balance has to come in is. And you're not going to find that balance unless you know how you need to apply it and what the outcome and the end goal and what success looks like. So there's no shortage of technologies to bring to the table. It's got to be done for a purpose, and it has to be brought together in such a way that we achieve the outcome and not stifle innovation at the same time. And that's where I think there's different models that are going out there. I think many claim that GDPR maybe is too stifling of innovation. And then there's lots of other places where, there's no policy, there's no regulation, and it's kind of the Wild West. So to me, it's about rooting itself in use cases, and then we can start making those decisions and coming up with the best possible outcomes.
If I may just do one more modification of what I wanted to say, is you're 100% saying, yeah, it's very hard. Then we need to, in lieu of this, we need to have 5, 6, 7 competing technologies on the table. We cannot demand that the entire world unifies on one only technology, and therefore it's one target for the bad actors. to take it all out. So, and bad actors can be also governments. Let's not forget this. So any bad actor, when it's only one technology, makes it so much easier to actually attack it.
Wonderful, Axel. Thank you so much for that. Kevin, thank you. Yasser, you have the final say on this subject. How does the this convergence and these three technologies impact identity and security?
Yeah, so thank you very much. So I'd like at least, I know it's a matter of semantics and vocabulary and so forth and language. So, I personally do not assimilate, at least in my perspective, directly, blockchain to security or cybersecurity. It's related, but it's not part of it. But obviously, blockchain is, to me, it's essentially like a network of witnesses that essentially validate an action. And so it's fundamental, in terms of determining who you are, and you have a consensus, around you, like validating that you are indeed that person. But then it relates to security, where you need to have a lot more control points to understand where you can enter, what you're entitled to, what your services kind of, essentially menu that you can access and so forth. So I think it's fundamental. Axel, I meet you again, and I echo you on the fact that it should not be one technology, and it is not one technology. So I think that Ethereum seems to be doing, at least, pushing, for interesting, layers of technology that others can continue on and have like layer 1, 2, and 3 and so forth. So I think that portfolio is going to deepen, but I personally prefer to, keep cybersecurity as a different animal. And then, like you said, like, who do you trust? Well, I thought that the model in cybersecurity was zero trust. So I prefer to stand with that and then validate everything.
Yeah, great comment over there, Yasser. Let's take an audience question, and this comes from Ben. And his question is specifically related to what we've been discussing till now, and again brings us back to blockchain. So his question is, does the panel believe that there are potentially more applications for blockchain in the B2B world? So he's used an example of genomic data on 23andMe, rather than in the B2C world. Axel, you had an example of, it's my data, Mr. Doctor, why don't you just go ahead and use that? And I turn on the switch, and now I'll turn it off after I'm done with this visit. What are the views of the panel over here? Is blockchain probably a larger impact-creating technology on the B2B side, B2C side, or it doesn't matter? There are use cases on both sides. Axel, we'll begin with you.
I think I can only reiterate of what we said so far. I cannot predict the future. Currently, I do not see a pressure point for blockchain, and therefore I cannot come in and say, is it better in the B2C or B2B world? I gave you one use case out of the medical records field. I would like to be empowered to give my information and take it away. Is blockchain the way to go? I will have to see and wait for that.
Thank you for that, Axel. Kevin, your view on this, the question that comes in from Ben.
Yeah, it's again, my initial comments around blockchain, based on what I see of our companies, it's still a technology looking for the application, and I'm going to come back to the same sort of thing. Is I think if you find the right application, and if blockchain helps you reach the outcomes that you're looking for, then it's a good application of the technology. But I'm going to stick fast with my comments around it. It has to be use case driven, and whatever technology comes to the table to best achieve the outcomes is the best solution, B2B or B2C or otherwise.
Yeah,
Kevin, thank you for that. Agit, you are amongst all of us the largest defender or the biggest defender on blockchain. So help us with your perspective.
Yes, I need to start with echo what Kevin said, actually, and just start with a statement. Blockchain is not the silver bullet. At the end, there are certain application and certain use cases, as Kevin said. It will make sense, perfect sense, to utilize blockchain technology and the infrastructure and really use all this benefit what the blockchain bring with. But there's other use cases. It's make no sense. It will be only wasting of time. It's make no sense because you can do it cheaper, faster, with different technology or different platform. Therefore, as Kevin said, you need to look at the use case, what it's bringing, like really makes sense in terms of data privacy, authentication, identity, security, consensus, and study the use case, and then based on that decide, okay, it will make sense here or there. It's definitely there's a lot of area where blockchain can add value. As you mentioned before, in supply chain for B2B is a huge benefit, a huge advantage, makes sense. Document and customs, as example, against fraud and everything, this makes a huge benefit, add value, but also in B2C, as Axel said before, like I want to control and my data, and I want to know exactly today. I will share it with Axel for 2 hours because he is my doctor in LA. But after this, he is not allowed to take care, look at it. But Kevin, maybe he is from pharmaceutical company and looking for data, collecting data for a medical trial or for any study they want, and he's looking for a patient who is now, as me now in Dubai, with certain age, with certain things, interested to pay a couple of dollars for me, then I will sell it to him and make money from him, and then. This is a perfect use case, how to utilize, again, in the B2C, bring benefit for the consumer, actually, and at the same time, they have the control of their data 100%.
Wonderful.
This is my view on that. It's not the silver bullet, but there's a lot of applications can add value for the businesses and also for the consumer.
Great. Yasser, you have the final word. Business to business, business to consumer, or both sides?
That's too much responsibility to give me the last word. But no, thank you. No, just kidding. So the thing is that the first thing that comes to mind here is, I mean, we're talking about transactions, and are we talking volumes or value? So, I mean, I understand that. I mean, obviously, I think that, I mean, natural to think that B2B at this volume is going to be big. And so generally, you know, marginal value is going to be smaller. So you're going to make less money of the same number of transactions, I think, on B2B. And so in B2C, I mean, you're up higher in the value chain. So, I mean, the margins is going to be bigger. So you have volume on B2B, I guess, and, you know, value on B2C. Another way of looking at it also maybe is, as we're talking transactions, I mean, there's machines, and I think, Kevin, you had suggested it earlier, or somebody else here on the call. But then you have machine-to-machine, you know, transactions, then machine-to-human kind of transactions. And I think it's granted here, and same logic as B2B, is that, you know, machine-to-machine are going to be the most talkative, you know, elements of the network. And so, you know, at least that's, some thinking around it or some perspective. Like you said, like, it's going to be in both places, ultimately, and not the only tech. So.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Yasser. So with that, we have run out of the allocated time. I just want to thank everybody on the panel today. I had a wonderful time discussing these topics with you. I learned a lot, frankly, through this conversation. Hopefully, every panel member got something out of this conversation. Thank you to the audience who brought in some of the questions. I think we were able to discuss and debate most of them, but Nitin, I hand it over to you if there are any other questions that I may have missed and the audience wants to shoot those at the panelists at this point in time. So over to you, Nitin.
Thank you, Lalit, and thank you all the panel members. We witnessed a great discussion with all of you, and lovely questions from the audience as well. I think all the questions from the audience have been answered till now. So I think it is a great questions which they put and great answers from all of you. So just I'll wrap it up so that easy for all of us to understand what is in store and what we have witnessed today. So just to wrap up, we as a company, AI CoreSpot, would like to thank our technology partner, Digit7, and all our community partners, speakers, and especially the attendees as well, who came together for enriching knowledge through this forum. It was really interesting discussion which we witnessed today from all of you, Lalit, Axel, Kevin, Agat, Yasser. I think I enjoyed it thoroughly and hope the audience must have done as well. So request all of you to log into our website and like the social media channel as we will be sharing a lot of knowledge, sharing topics, details, announcement of next events, and much more, which will help you to register and attend the quality events like these. Just for your information, today's event was broadcasted live in the YouTube and the Facebook page of our company. So request all of you, if you have the time and see the recording anytime you like our page, and go and see the recording. There are lots more in store for subsequent months as well, with focus on retail, e-commerce, healthcare, banking, financial, and many more topics which we are planning in the next year as well. So request all of you to keep connected with us, enjoy the learning, have a lovely day ahead, have a lovely holiday which is coming up this month, and keep safe from the COVID times. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.